We all found ourselves in a completely new world in the morning of 24th February. But at the same time, we are continuing to apply old categories like sanctions, severe sanctions, health sanctions, and so on. I think that it's not relevant now. We have to speak about the complete economic, financial and trade isolation of Russia, plus political and diplomatic isolation of Russia. Otherwise, it will be very difficult for us to influence Mr. Putin's further decisions. And I'm very glad that I see the signs of this complete political and diplomatic isolation of Russia. Look at what happened in General Assembly when 141 countries supported Ukraine and only 5, actually together with Russia, supported Russia's positions. And those 4 countries were Belarus, Syria, North Korea and Eritrea. I think it's a food for thought. It should be at least a food for thought for Mr. Putin. Actually, I think that there were no sanctions implied against Mr. Putin after he tried to invade Georgia in 2008. May I remind you that even he was not excluded from a G8 group, and in 3 months after his invasion of Georgia, it was business as usual. Reset policy, which Mr. President Obama's administration was trying to pursue with Mr. Putin and all these things. It led to annexation of Crimea, war in eastern Ukraine. Now we have full-fledged invasion of Russia into Ukraine, and if we will not stop Mr. Putin now, who will be the next? Next will be Russian troops on the borders of NATO, and we all know his concept that the biggest geopolitical tragedy of the 20th century was the collapse of the Soviet Union. And may I remind you that now some members of NATO are former members of the Soviet Union. So we have to be very careful about that. Now, I think that we have unique chance to press Russia in whatever measures we can to apply, including actually this non-fly zone. And there are several options. It's not necessary to imply non-fly zone all over Ukraine, but at least it could be over the nuclear objects of Ukraine, nuclear power stations, and at least 100-kilometer zone adjacent to the NATO space. Polish-Ukrainian and Romanian-Ukrainian border. Yeah, and it could be a first step. And also, of course, NATO should provide military planes to Ukraine. That we all experts actually were united in idea, actually all of them, that it was impossible for Putin to invade first Georgia, then annex Crimea, then undertake this full-fledged invasion to Georgia, because he's speaking about the special military operation. Now Mr. Putin is speaking about the possible involvement of NATO into military conflict. I think that there is no certainty even in Russian political elite what they are doing at the moment. But Putin demonstrated that it's very difficult to calculate, and it's beyond rationale what he is doing. Yeah. Remember, his own generals, General Ivashov, General Khodorionok, were warning him. And I know these generals personally. I was negotiating with them withdrawal of Russian troops from Georgia in the middle of 90s, at least with General Ivashov. He's not Democrat. His mind is complete imperialistic. But even he warned Putin. Putin didn't hear him. Okay, now I think that we're approaching to a certain stage where Mr. Putin will have to take his decisions, either to retreat or to apply these crazy ideas about these tactical nuclear weapons and so on. But I think that everyone understands, although around him in Russia, in Kremlin, and we see the signs of it, that it will be tragedy, of course, for Europe, because he's going, I mean, if any, he's considering to use tactical weapons, not strategic nuclear weapons, of course, because technologically he will not able to do that. But it will be tragedy certainly for Europe, but it will be complete finish, and complete abolishment of and destroy of Russia. And I think that a lot of people in Kremlin understand that much better now than yesterday.
So you see all of these people, 1.7 million now, possibly 5 million by the middle of the summer. What is going to happen to all of these people?
It's just devastating to contemplate that this crisis is really not even 2 weeks in the making. And you look at the exodus that's happening outside of Ukraine, people, piling onto buses, trains, cars, any way that they can get out with whatever they can carry. And inside Ukraine, the situation is obviously absolutely devastating. I was speaking with our team today in Ukraine, and we have a team in Mariupol, and what they describe is the situation there is apocalyptic. People don't have food, they don't have water, they don't have heat, they don't have electricity. And these are scenes that are obviously repeated across many of these cities in Ukraine today. So it's just a huge humanitarian crisis that is unfolding in front of our eyes. And unfortunately, so long as this fighting continues like it is, we can only expect that the humanitarian needs will grow. But what I would say is that today, what is really important is those refugees arriving into those countries that we provide them with, the assistance that we often think about, food, water, shelter, and these basic needs. But something that often gets forgotten is that families in conflicts like this get separated from one another. And I think if we can put, ourselves into the shoes of some of these families fleeing, they could be leaving behind a brother, a husband. They may not know what's happening to their mother in another city. And a big part of what we'll be doing with the Red Cross and Red Crescent Network is to really try and help families reconnect with one another and find one another. Wow. So again, I think it's just too early to speculate, but I would like to reiterate that beyond these immediate needs that we so often think of in the wakes of wars and disasters, we have to remember that there are families who are separated and that pain is unbearable. And a big part of our role will be trying to help families stay in touch with one another.